everybody. Welcome to Mixed Breed Entertainment. Today we went up to the LST 325 and took Pop up there. We did a tour of it. First thing I'd like to say is this was not a paranormal investigation. This was meant to go up there, do something with Pop. He was in the Navy, and we were just going to go up there to do a tour of the Battleship. No paranormal whatsoever. Or was it? I do know when we got on the ship and we started the tour, I was able to record. Now, remind you, every time I go on an investigation, or every time we get ready to go out and record a video, we always make sure all of our equipment is fully charged and we have enough batteries to get through what we're going to end up recording. So that being said, we get on the ship, we're doing the tour, and right before we go down into the ship, my batteries die on my camera, which was fully charged. You'll see that'll cut out right there at the beginning. I had to change the batteries. There was a few things that we missed, but not very much. And then the second time we had something unexplained happen was right when the guy who was giving us the tour started telling us about the injured soldiers and stuff like that was coming back from the war. They would be on stretchers and they would take them through this little hole of a doorway. And when he started talking about that is when my camera shuts off all by itself. And there was a few, maybe 5 minutes of that we didn't catch of the tour because of that reason. I did not notice that my camera shut off. It just shut off as he was speaking about the injured soldiers, which was kind of weird. And got the camera turned back on, and we did the rest of the tour. There was a couple of spots where the camera wouldn't focus or anything like that, but like I said, this was not a paranormal investigation, so I took note of these things, but I didn't talk about it during the footage because of the simple fact that I didn't want to be rude to the guy who was giving us the tour. So that being said, you guys just watch the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and yeah, enjoy the video.
Oh, you weren't?
No.
Huh.
That's the Evansville shipyard. Shows where all the ships were and all the little battleships and stuff were docked.
They know battleships are.
Yeah. I think what these are for.
Just the room for it. And counting. Oh my God.
Man, that's old stuff right there. You got some of these coins, I think, don't you?
Yeah, probably so.
Boom.
No. Huh. I don't see a single neighbor hat like mine.
Feed the gators. So what's up, everybody? I'm here in Evansville at the LST 325. Check this out. We are getting ready to go on that thing. Check out those guns on it. Check out them guns. So yeah, we're got a tour in about 10 minutes and we will be on there, and when we start the tour I will see you then.
Europe. Okay, headed that way.
Well, the other thing I was going to ask was you an LST sailor? No?
My grandmother was a welder in the victory ships in Savannah.
Oh, okay.
She got hit by a crane and got taken out, but it didn't kill her. Headache ball. It was always accident.
Yeah. So what'd you do in the Navy?
I was electronic.
Electronics? Okay.
Worked on aircraft.
Sure.
Okay to work.
Sure don't. I had to turn the camera there. I just sure didn't want none of the viewers to know that code. I didn't know what you were doing there for a minute. I was like, oh no, he's fixing to punch in the code.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they used to have one on the inside here too, which was kind of silly, but it broke. So they just put a push button. Oh, there
Are we falling apart?
more than likely. Actually, we got a little truck that they haul heavier stuff up and down through here that'll actually fit down here. They might have fell off of there.
It was like some of the bridges we crossed coming across over to to Henderson. Man, they were falling apart. I was like, we're gonna have to find a different way to go.
Oh, you're talking about
Out there in Spotsville.
Oh yeah, Spotsville, yeah. Well, that one's getting replaced there, you know. So one of these days I'll have a new one over there, but I don't know if I'll live long enough to see that. Of course, I don't drive over that way much anymore. So they don't.
You are on the boat here, ain't you?
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, well, get started here. My name's Fred. I was was on. I'm a Navy veteran too. I was on submarines back in the '70s, so I'm a little younger. Actually, you're probably about my dad's age then, because he was in Korea.
Yeah.
He just turned 91, didn't you? He
Yeah.
turned 91 in the hospital.
Oh, okay. You're pretty spry for a 91-year-old.
Well, thank you.
Oh,
You're doing good.
Try to survive.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad, gosh, he died back in, he died in 95, so he's been dead for 25 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, he was in Korea. He was a ground pounder though. He was infantry, army infantry.
Oh.
So he didn't have a good time over there.
Well, you mess around and you get drafted that can.
And that's what happened to him. He got drafted. So. Anyway.
Yeah, that's like what we used to tie the aircraft down with.
Yeah, well, that's actually, you can see that's what it does. I mean, it's designed to tie things down up here on the main deck. I'll give you a little quick history lesson. We won't stay up there too long because it's cold up here. But you familiar with the Evansville shipyard? Evansville had a Navy shipyard that actually was just down the river here. It covered about 40 acres along the riverfront, about where that terminal is there that sticks out over the water. It started just the other side of that, and it went all the way down to the Singing Hall building, just before you get past it, right by the corner there, and it covered all that area there. The reason it's connected to LSTs is because they actually built the shipyard in order to build LSTs. It was one of what they called the cornfield shipyards that they built during World War II. There was about a half a dozen of them, different rivers, and they were actually constructed to build the LSTs because they were such a high priority during the war.
Yeah,
And,
big time stuff.
Big time. And Evansville actually built the most of any of them. They built 171 of them. There were people, actually, 1,000 employees there. They were turning them out, putting them into the river about once every 4 days. They were completed at that point. That's how quickly they were constructing the shells and stuff to where they were floatable
They could get them out
to get them out on the river. And they'd finish them, and they'd actually bring them out on the ways down there with Meade Johnson down there. They got a parking lot down there that was actually the main part of the shipyard. And they'd launch them there, and then they would tie them up to piers further down the river and finish them up down the river. Like I said, at peak production, they were able to turn them out about once every 4 days.
I don't know how long, like over in Savannah, how those ships came out, but we used to go down there when we was in junior high school.
Oh, okay,
and watch them, put them together. And see.
Yeah, I didn't know it. I'll be honest, I grew up here in Evansville, and I didn't know anything about that shipyard.
No, they don't. There was a lot of secrets.
Well,
there had to be.
Well, plus it didn't last that long. After the war, it was gone. They closed it down right after the war, and then about 47, they had a major fire that destroyed most of the wooden buildings. So it was pretty well completely gone.
Wow.
But that's the history of that's how this LST ended up, we're glad to say, made it to Evansville. There's several of the other cities really wanted it, but Evansville was able to get it home ported here. So we're kind of glad we got it here.
It helps the city.
Yeah,
The city doesn't self-destruct.
Well, they actually helped. The city gave some money. Well, Tropicana, Casino. Thanks. My mind goes pretty fast. The casino actually provided a lot of money because this is where their initial, when they had a floating casino, it sat right here.
Yeah.
And then when they got rid of it, built a land-based casino. And they were able to
we came to the boat a lot, didn't we?
A lot of money in that floating casino.
Spent a lot of money there.
I've been out on it once when it actually went out on the river.
Yeah.
But every other time we came up, it was always just sitting. And like you said, we spent a lot of money at the boat.
Well, my wife liked to come down here for it, but I wasn't very much of it. I think
she liked mine. Mine liked it too.
Yeah, she.
Boy, she could spend your whole damn paycheck.
Oh yeah. When I quit coming down here, then her and her sister used to come down here all the time. spend my money down here. Well, anyway, guys, we're standing on the main deck. What were you on in the Navy? Were you on a
I
ship?
was on the Roosevelt and the Lake. Both of
Okay,
them.
Roosevelt, that was a carrier. Okay.
Both of them were carriers.
Well, both were carriers. Okay. Well, so you know good, because if you were on LSTs, then you'd know more about them than me.
No, I don't. I didn't know any other than what I read.
Oh, okay. Well, the LST was built, actually it was conceived by Winston Churchill at the start of the war. He knew that in order to beat the Germans, that they would have to come up with something that could carry heavy equipment and troops and land them on the beach. And because the Germans had control of all the major ports and stuff in France and Belgium and along there already. So they would come up with something different. And so actually Winston Churchill came up with the idea of the LST. They couldn't build them enough of them in England, so he turned it over to the United States. And they ended up building them there. They actually gave it to the Bureau of Ships. An engineer named John Niedermeyer actually came up with the design. And they said basically when he turned it over to the Bureau of Ships, they pretty much accepted his design. So this design, it was one guy who came up with this design. And
Well, it did quite a bit. I know they were worried about it, different things that, you read about it in the papers, just a little sketches. And
well, anyway, like I said, they started building them in 41. Or I should say that's when they turned it over to him, was in 41. They actually started building them in 42. So they came out pretty quick. There was no waiting on them. Like today, where it would take years to build a ship,
yeah,
they were turning them out pretty fast. But the 325 was actually built in Philadelphia. They couldn't find any more that was made in Evansville. They're all gone. But this one was actually built in Philadelphia. It was one of the very early. It was one of the first group that they built in Philadelphia. It was actually laid down in early 42, not early 42, about the fall of 42. It was launched in late 42, commissioned in early 43. Then they sent it over, well, they went out and did a shakedown cruise, sent it up to New York, loaded it up with equipment, sent it over to North Africa in about March, April of 43.
that was really.
Yeah, so they turned them out really fast and got them over there. Well, there was such a need for them. She participated in the invasion of Sicily, which was in July of 43, and then she also participated in the invasion of Italy in September of 43. And I don't know the exact dates, but and then
that don't matter.
yeah, and then in November of 43. They sent it to England to prepare for the D-Day invasion. And then she was actually involved in the D-Day invasion, which was June 6th. I can remember that date, of 44. And she actually made 44 trips across the English Channel.
Wow, that's a lot.
And we've got a bunch of pictures and stuff once we get down on the tank deck down there that you can take a look at. They've actually shown her sitting there at Normandy Beach. It's Omaha Beach is where she was primarily at. And like I said, she did 44 trips across the English Channel.
I didn't realize it when they were talking about it in the newspapers now, know. I didn't realize it.
Yeah,
it was that active.
We always say that this was a lucky ship because you're standing on it. Because if it wasn't lucky, it wouldn't be here anymore.
No.
Like I said, they built over 1,000 of them. The United States built over 1,000 LSTs. The thinking was that they weren't going to last very long, and so they built a lot of them. By the end of the war, they'd lost less than 30 to enemy fire. So they really did extremely well, given that they weren't.
The timing was really great, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. LST stands for Landing Ship Tank. That's the official Navy designation for it. But they said the crew called it a large, slow target because they didn't go fast and they were big. They made a good target, but surprisingly enough, most of them survived the war. The vast majority of them were scrapped after the war. There was a few left over. 325 after the war, well, actually, when the war in Europe ended, they sent it back to the States to get refitted to go out to the Pacific. But by the time that it was ready to go to the Pacific, the war had ended there. So they ended up hit ice and stuff to make it an icebreaker. They also had to make it to where it could be heated, sufficiently when you got up in that cold water up there. But that lasted till about 61. They took it back out of commission at 61, put it back in mothballs. The plans at that point were probably going to be to scrap it at some point, but in 64 they turned it over to the Greek Navy.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah, so it ended up in Greece from 64 till 99. So it was in the Greek Navy 35 years, which is longer than it was in the American Navy. And then in 2000 is when the LST Memorial found it and got a hold of it, and then they brought it back to the United States here. And here you see it today. Here she is. So it just kind of gives you a little history of the 325 and LSTs.
I had no clue about any of that.
I'm not gonna insult you by saying that's the bow and that's the stern. So it wasn't a whole lot more than these, but they only stacked us 3 deep.
Yeah,
these are stacked.
that's what wows too.
Yeah, but these are stacked 4 deep here. LSTs have a flat bottom on them, so they were notorious for rolling really bad on the open ocean.
Wow.
Well, they said, if you were prone to seasickness, you were going to get seasick on these.
Yeah. Had to hold it down.
Yeah. Part of the design that helped out with that is that John Neal added to these. He put a lot of good ballast in the bottom of it, to where they could, when they were in the open ocean, they would fill those up with water, so it would sit down a little lower in the water and it wouldn't grow quite as bad. And then, but they also used them for actual landing on the beaches and stuff to get the ship in the right angles and different things, so to land on the beaches.
Look how crowded.
So anyway, and this is as far as we'll go through here now, but basically this just looked the same all the way down through there. About halfway down there was a head, restroom, and then an area, like a lounge area and stuff for the soldiers there.
Oh, we got the top secret stuff down there, huh?
No, it's because we have, this thing is still a work in progress. We're still working on it.
Still, well, working. Okay, secret words there. Work in progress.
Work in progress.
How many tanks can they hold?
This thing they said can hold 20 shining tanks.
It's like when they show them old bunker bases and they say that they're no longer in operational.
Yeah, this is what it was built for basically here. This is what they call the tank deck. This is actually level 3. That was level 2 up there. This is 3 coming down the deck. And then there is a 4th one. It's down below us. We won't go down into there, but that's primarily tanks and voids, and then the engineering spaces are down below us. But this is
Fly out there when they could.
yeah. Of course, you can see, they have the same tie downs, but these tie downs are recessed in the floor because of the tank treads running over, and they would have tore up if they had the kind that they had on the main deck.
Right.
They would have tore them up pretty bad. So these are recessed. We'll walk down this way a little bit easier. If you get tired or anything, let me know. I think you're in better shape than I am.
Oh, he runs circles around me. I'll tell you, man. When he goes for walks, he's quicker than I am.
Oh, no kidding. You can get shape. Heck, my knees are not shot. Some days I can barely get out of bed. And I'm only 66, so I'm way behind you.
Every spring, he's out there in the garden, in the yard, all day long.
I won't go too far up here, but that's the main loading area there. That's the ramp that actually drops down. That actually is what seals the ship against the ocean water there. There's a gasket that runs around that, and then the main doors are on the outside, and they don't actually seal against ocean water. So
Yeah, they just, they're,
they're there just to make it, to give it a front end that'll cut through the water, and you can actually, if you walk around the outside, you can see them.
well, they planned it out really good.
They did, yeah. Up here overhead, there's a traffic light up there, and that actually is a true traffic light. The guy that was, remember I said the loading man up there, he would control that light. If it was red, it meant that the engines were turned off on the tanks and they were tied down. They'd go to yellow, that was telling them to go ahead and take the dogs off your tanks and stuff, get them ready to go, fire the engines up, and then when it went to green, that meant unload, take off. But there were actually 2 rows of them down through here, so they would, obviously they would have to take turns getting out of here. One thing I forgot to mention up on the top, well, a little bit warmer down here, this is actually an elevator here. And that's how they would get equipment, if they bring it in down here, that's how they would get it up on the main deck. When they got ready to unload it, then they would use that to bring it back down here to get all the...
Wow, that's what I was wondering about.
Sounds like a jet taking off from the boat. It was like we didn't accidentally get put on an aircraft carrier when we came in, did we?
It might have been a jet or something there. But anyway, what they've got down here, all this side is all workspaces. There's a mechanical workshop, there's electrical workshop, pipe fitting workshop. They're all scattered down through here on this side.
Julian brooms.
Yeah, we still use them all.
That holds a little weak.
This is an operating ship. This ship actually goes out on the river.
So if something happened and we were attacked, they could easily turn this into an operational
Other
ship.
than our guns don't work anymore.
Oh, they don't? Well, I mean, yeah, but that's just putting in the pieces to make them work again.
Yeah, the guns that were on here, and we'll see them a little bit closer when we get back to the stern, but they're all anti-aircraft guns. So
Right.
it's strictly for defensive purposes here.
Because I got a lot of viewers right now on YouTube that's talking about what's going on in the Capitol, and they're so afraid of a civil war and everything like that, and it's just...
I don't think that'll happen, but
I don't
hey,
either.
you never know. You never know. Our country's getting kind of goofy these days. That side there is actually storage area for where the soldiers kept their duffels and their guns and stuff that they brought with them. We're all along that side over there. We actually use it for, we have our paint locker over there now, and we keep a lot of tools and stuff back in there too. But, yeah, this is an actual operating ship. This thing, the engines work when they're not broke down. They, like I said, the diesel generators all work. It's actually designed to go out on the river, and we didn't do it this last fall because of the COVID issue, but we're hoping this next fall to take it back out.
We'll have to do that again, won't we?
Yeah. If you want to go on it, all you got to do is pay membership and volunteer.
We have to drive too long. Maybe they can get one there for Owensboro.
Yeah. Well, this is actually, I think they're planning on taking it up to Brandenburg, Kentucky, which is up going toward Louisville. And then it's supposed to start.
Yeah, that's what I think I saw that.
Yeah, and then,
That was somebody's idea.
yeah, and then the other two, it's going to make 2 other stops. Another one up somewhere in eastern Kentucky, further up the river, and then someplace
Well, I bet you could
in West
sweat
Virginia.
bullets if you went back in the old days when you were going up.
Oh, yeah.
Hot in here?
A battle with this.
Yeah, you guys ought to be glad you're taking this tour here in the wintertime. It's a little cool, but yeah, it gets incredibly warm down here. We've had people pass out on us and stuff.
Oh, I bet so.
They'll open that all up in the summertime, but it still gets really hot down here.
Yeah, I mean,
There's no air
still,
conditioning.
there's a little space.
Yeah, there's no air conditioning here.
So the flags that are up there, is that every place that this ship has been?
These flags, no, those are signal flags.
Signal flags.
You know about those? Yeah, that's where you send
I've seen them, but
messages.
I never was around them too much.
Yeah, I
but
didn't
you
know
could,
a whole lot about them either. I was a machinist mate in the Navy, so I worked in engineering. So yeah, this is all deck stuff here. But yeah, they could actually send signals to other ships around them and stuff using those flags. And each
Is that
one-
about how big a tank is in here?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a cutout of a Sherman tank. It's pretty close to the actual size of the Sherman, as far as looking at it from the side. The Cobra King was actually a pretty famous tank. It was actually in Patton's Third Army, and when they went up to, remember the Battle of the Bulge, which you're probably familiar with that, the 101st Airborne Division was trapped in Bastogne, Belgium, and they were in danger of being captured by the Germans, and I guess they asked Patton if he could get up there and relieve them, and he said, "When do you want me to leave?" They said, "Well, as soon as possible." And he said, "I'm going to be up there in like 3 days." And it was over 100 miles, I think. Wow. And they said, "There's no way you can get a whole army division up there." He says, "You watch me." And he did it. Yep. But anyway, the Cobra King was the first tank in his army, his Third Army. They had actually pulled into Bastogne to relieve the 101st. So it's a pretty famous tank. They said it. That's where they found it, over in Belgium over there. And they actually, or wherever it ended up at after the war, and they got it, the United States, somebody got it back over to Fort Knox, and they rebuilt it and fixed it all up, and supposedly it's over at Fort Knox there, in a tank museum over there. So, but that's it. But like I said, this thing would hold about 20 tanks. I suspect it probably could hold more, but that was probably getting into the weight limit, because those tanks were about 30 tons each. And this thing could only hold like 2,000 pounds of cargo. 2,000 tons of cargo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I say, when I said pounds, I meant tons. Okay, this lady is kind of important. Evelyn Cox was the first female welder at the Evansville shipyard. And by the time they were at full capacity, they ran about 40% of the workforce there was women, because the men were all fighting the war. So they hired a lot of women to work in the Evansville shipyard, and they said the women actually made really good welders. So a lot of them were doing a lot of the welding.
Yeah, that's what my grandmother did.
That's what she did, yeah. Apparently, the story I got is that women back then, they did a lot of sewing, so they were used to following a straight line when they did sewing. So converting that over to welding, I guess, is real easy or something. But yeah, the women actually did a lot of the welding. This is some of the history of the 325 over there, and on this side is the history of that shows where they actually originated in England for the D-Day invasion, and then where they landed along the beaches there. And like I said, the 325 actually participated in the Omaha beach landing. And if you look at this picture down here, you can't see the numbers too well, but I've been told it's the second or third LST in line there is the 325, parked on the beach at Omaha there. And that was actually on the day after D-Day.
Wow.
So, and it was a busy ship. Like I said, it made 44 crossings of the English Channel between D-Day and the end of the war. So.
Yeah, I had a lot of relatives that were in, well, all the men were.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, a lot of them were in the invasion too.
Okay.
Others were in Africa.
Yeah, I had several uncles served in the Army during World War II. One of them didn't make it back. He's actually died in the POW camp over there. So, yeah, I got 3 or 4 uncles that were in.
I think all mine. One of them was a radio man. One of them was just, he was,
I think all of my uncles were
one of the
Army.
workers in a glider, and they went over
Oh, okay.
in France.
Okay, yeah, that was all part of it.
That was like a nightmare too. That's what
Yeah.
I heard.
Put your face in there, Pop. Get a picture.
Huh?
I said you want to put your face in there and get a picture.
I don't think I could get my face in there.
We can just kind of look through it. Let's see where. Oh, okay. We've actually got 2 of those LCBPs, landing craft, we've taken them off for the winter because we put them in storage during the winter. But this thing actually has two of them that we normally, once spring rolls around, we'll hang them back on the ship here. Of course, that's how they got in and out of them, was rope ladders. So they would drop them into the water, and then they'd drop a rope ladder over the side, and the soldiers would climb down into the landing craft.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they didn't.
I know that Roosevelt had they let us go swimming in the Mediterranean one time. And we went down.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Some of the guys would jump off.
That's a long jump down from those carriers.
Yeah, darn right, it was about 100 and something feet.
Oh, I wouldn't have been doing it.
I was from Florida, and I know damn that.
These are some more of the pictures at the 325 where it's actually at Normandy. And I think it also landed at, what was the other beach? Utah Beach, I believe, was another one that it landed. But as you can see, what they would do is they would come in at high tide, and then they'd wait for the tide to go out, and then they were sitting high and dry on the beach, and then that's when they normally did their unloading and that. And they would have to just wait for the tide to come back in so they could get off the beach then.
Wow.
So that's why you can see them actually sitting like this is the back end of it here. So there's the rudders and the screws back there, so you can tell it was completely out of the water. This is actually kids like this. This is a Lego model of the LST here. Just kind of give you an idea.
Boy, somebody really worked hard for that.
Well, it was actually built by that company, Brick Media. So they actually, I guess, they did a good job on it. This kind of gives you an indication of what that main deck looked like when it was filled up with Jeeps and trucks and whatever they could get up there.
Man, you can't even walk on the deck.
Cool, yeah. Wow. This here system here, this is what they call a Brody device. It was actually designed to launch and recover small reconnaissance aircraft off the side of the LST. They would put those booms on there. And they had a cable stretched between the two of them, and then they had a hook on this airplane. You kind of see it up on top there. And they would come in and they'd actually hook on that cable. They wouldn't really land, but it would stay on the cable. They would get off of it or get on whatever they had to do, and then when they were ready to take off again, they would reverse the hook somehow, turn the plane around, and then take off. Off of that same cable.
Back into the wind. Yeah.
They actually put that on after they left Europe, before they were getting ready to go out to the Pacific to fight in the war there. But they never used it because it didn't have to go out the Pacific. By the time it was ready to go, the war was over in the Pacific then. So,
Wow.
the LST was a very versatile ship. They actually used it for a lot of different things. That's a model of a repair ship. They use it for repair.
People don't realize there was so much in the war that was a lot of little things.
Yeah.
It wasn't all, one gigantic invasion,
Yeah, there was a lot involved. Well, what was it? They said 2,000 ships were involved in the D-Day landings, I believe. So it was like the largest armada ever put together up to that time. So, but they also used it for hospital ships. They used it for ammunition ships. They would load it up with ammunition and pull up next to your carriers and battleships and stuff to reload on them. That one there is actually a later design there. That was probably more like the ones in Korea. I don't know if you saw any of them over in Korea or not.
No, I didn't go that way.
The later designs, where we talked about that elevator there for loading and unloading the top deck, that took like 3 minutes for that to get down and up again. So they ended up doing away with that elevator. They put a ramp on there to where they could just drop the ramp down and they could just drive right off that upper deck, which made it a lot faster loading and unloading. I don't know if you ever got the right on one of these or not. Boats and chairs, they call them bosun's chairs or high-line lifts.
A couple of times.
Did you really?
Not for emergency.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, I was on submarines. Thank goodness we didn't have to use them. But
it didn't quite look like that, but it was much uglier.
oh, okay. No, I never had to ride on that, but I was kind of glad. This is looking down into our engineering spaces. This is actually the auxiliary engine room. This is where the diesel generators that provided the power were in this room here.
Wow.
You can see one of them right here. There's actually three of them under feet here. And then that's the main switch gear back here. There were pumps and stuff down in there for pumping the ballast tanks and stuff around down in there. The main engines are actually back this way a little bit further. We can't get down in there, but they have the main engines were like 900 horse. They're actually locomotive engines. That's what they use, because they didn't have any diesel engines for these boats when they started building them. So they were able to get them out of the locomotive industry, and they managed to convert them to.
You know, I think they were still doing that when I was in the service too.
They probably were. Yeah. I was thinking that there were a lot of diesel engines around, but I was talking to one of these guys here, and he said, "Well, no, actually, most of the locomotives were steam driven back in those days. They were just starting to switch over from steam to diesel back before the war. So there really weren't that, because there weren't that many of them, but they were building them, so that's what they used to actually power these things with. And they would run a whopping 10 knots top speed. So they didn't go real fast. That's why they call them large, slow targets. Of course, on this side here is one of our 20 millimeter Oerlikon cannons here. We've got the ones up on the deck were all covered up, so I'd like to show this one down here. Typically, this took about 3 men to fire this. There was a gunner who sits in a sling on the back there, and then he had a guy that would actually load up his magazines up there. They were 60-round magazines, and depending, I guess, on how fast he could keep them loaded, they could fire up to about 250 rounds a minute. And then, and each gun had its own talker as well that would communicate with the captain or the bridge when they were in a war situation. This is a radar unit. Now none of these work, but we do have actual operating radios upstairs. No, you didn't. You said you weren't a radio. You knew a radio man, didn't you?
No, I wasn't a radio man. No, I was in just any of the electronics.
Any of the electronics.
That's what. Any of the air.
I'll sneak you into the radio shop or shack up there if you want to see it. So, I mean, we'll be going right by it.
Did any of it have like scalar wave radars? The scalar
No, you're
radars?
going over my head now. I don't know much about it. This is a radar unit. This was a ship-to-shore telegraph unit here.
This was getting near this was after the war. They didn't have the radar was real secret in the, during the end of the World War II.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if the LST had radar. I guess. Well, somebody in the convoys, I guess, had radar, but I don't know if every ship had it. And then it's actual ship-to-ship radio. These are parts from our diesel engine when they brought it back to the United States here back in 2000. They stopped in at Mobile, Alabama, and they actually had to overhaul, I think, one or both of the engines. That's the flywheel off of one of the engines. I'm not sure which one it is, but as you can see from when they took it apart, it only had 2 bolts holding it on. The other 4 done broke off.
Wow.
So
they
basically crossed the Atlantic Ocean with an engine that was ready to come apart. And then, of course, these are diesel engine parts. And I was a steam sailor, so I don't know much about diesel engines, but there's various parts there. That's the entrance to the engine room. Like I said, since it is an operating ship, they don't allow us to take tours down there. But you can actually get an idea about the size of the engines by that painting there. Like I said, they were 900 horsepower V12 GM diesel engines.
Wow.
So they're good size. They're big engines. And kind of gives you an idea how big they were. This here is our MASH Jeep. This was actually in the TV series MASH. And it was donated to the LST by this couple, Bobby and Tito Steer. Actually, somehow or other, they got a hold of it out in Hollywood, I guess.
I love that because we love MASH.
Yeah, and they donated. That's what I said.
MASH.
You can almost picture radar driving this.
Yes, you sure can.
Wow.
It was actually ambulance. Set up for an ambulance.
That is really cool.
Oh, something before I forget. These here are actually for stretchers to get, if you had, when this thing came back from Europe, it didn't come back empty. It carried a lot of wounded soldiers back and also POWs. They would load it up with prisoners of war, German POWs, and then a lot of wounded sailors or soldiers and stuff. And if they couldn't get, the only way to get into those, into that troop berthing area was ladders going up and down. So they didn't have these stairways back then. So in order to get, if they had soldiers that were on stretchers, they would open these up and they could pass them through into that area upstairs.
What's that, a walkway on the other side?
Well, that's that troop berthing up there. That's that second level where we came down here.
Oh, I see.
So, as a matter of fact, there's some pictures over here. Here's a picture of where they're actually passing soldiers through there, using it on some stretcher there. There's some German
They
POW.
have to have them.
Yeah. That shows some of the German POWs.
When I was in grade school, they converted one of the elementary schools to prison, and that's where the German prisoners kept them. And they would be right out in the school ground walking around with us saying,
That's interesting. I know that.
They were so happy for it to be over.
Oh yeah, they were ready for the war to be over by then. Actually, I think Camp Breckenridge over there by Morganfield was a POW camp at the end of the war. They brought a lot of German soldiers in over there. Yeah, I guess they figured they better get them away from Europe, or they'd be back. If they got loose over in Europe, they'd be back in the war again. So they haul them over to England and then send them back, send them to the United States, I guess. This kind of gives you an indication of how if they have a lot of wounded soldiers, they would actually fill this whole area up with cots, and they would keep a lot of wounded soldiers down here. So.
Wow.
All right, we're getting ready to head out of here. You got any questions on this?
No, that's fine.
Like I said, this is mainly what this thing was built for. This is the main tank.
Yeah, this is where the
Yeah,
doors
you can see
opened up.
how the doors open up and they drive equipment right up into it there and out of it, yeah. All right, well, we're about done down here, man. We'll head on up. You're probably pretty good with these dogs, but I still pinch my fingers on them all the time.
I'll keep away from them.
Yeah, that's why I said I always like to open and set them for people, because I don't want you to get your fingers pinched in them.
Greek
Yeah, that's some of that Greek paintings that you see around here. There's actually a Greek flag painted out there. I forgot to show it to you, but they got a Greek
Were
flag.
those painted by some of the
Greeks,
soldiers
the Greeks.
that were here,
Yeah,
that were on here?
yeah, like I said, Greece had this. It belonged to the Greek Navy for 35 years, so it was there longer than it was the United States Navy. All right, we're actually in the mess decks area here.
Oh, yeah.
So this is where they ate their meals and hung out at when they weren't on watch or something. The actual crew berthing goes through there, and it wraps all the way around the back side here. So that was the ship's crew. Their berthing was down in here, and then they also had a little bit of that side over there. And it was actually, my understanding, it was bigger originally. You can see some pictures of it out there. The Greeks actually enclosed this side here to make it a little bit smaller. But it's still, you had about 100 sailors in the crew on this one, which is nothing on compared to a carrier.
No.
And then they had about a dozen officers was the crew here. There's what we used to do a lot. sit there sleeping on the table. Remember those?
Yes,
You'd be so tired, you'd sleep wherever you could. These plaques here are really important to us. These are the guys that actually went over to Greece to get this thing up and get it repaired enough to where they could get it to run back to the United States. And then this is the actual crew that brought it back across the ocean.
Oh, man.
The average age of these guys was 73. Now that's young for you, I know, but still, that's
Oh,
if you can imagine,
I
guys had all that.
imagine me doing something like that.
Yeah. You can see all the crosses are guys that have since died. I'm sure that may not be updated yet. So there's a lot of yeah, we keep this a little warm down here. Oh, that area down there is actually ship stores. Dry stores was to the right, and then the refrigeration stores was to the left. And then you can't see it, but going back through there, it takes you back into the steering compartment. They actually steered this ship from back in there. Or I should say that's where the steering equipment was. They steered it from upstairs. Of course, this ought to look familiar. That's one of the enlisted men's heads there.
Oh, yeah.
We've got that one pretty well restored. There's a couple more along here that are in worse shape than that one. Like I said, this is still a work in progress here. So we're hoping to get this whole thing eventually up to where it's looking pretty good. But, it's going to take years to get it there. We're all pretty much volunteers to work on it here.
Yeah.
This is my, well, actually last year was my first year. I retired from my other job at the beginning of last year, and I started coming down here volunteering in June.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it gives me something to do. So, that's what everybody told me when I retired. They said, make sure you stay busy. So,
Yeah.
so I work down here when I can, and then I do a lot of work at my church, with the youth groups and stuff. Doing okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're doing good. Okay, here's the main gallery over here. Well, of course, all the food that was prepared in here for the soldiers and the ship's crew and everything. In here, they served it on these. These probably look familiar to you.
Yes, they do.
Those old metal trays, probably where you were at. But yeah, they still, when we go out on cruises, this is where they make our meals at and everything. We have work weeks where we'll work on board here, and they'll fix meals here too during the work weeks and stuff. So, and they make pretty good food. So
That's great.
yeah. On this side, those go into officers' country, those two doors, and we'll actually, when we get around to that side, we'll walk through there. But for now, just want to point this out. This is the ship's office here. And that's where the yeoman that took care of your money and your mail and everything, he's like the most important guy on the ship.
Right.
So, but that was his office there.
Never got to know him other than just like that.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people on the Roosevelt. There was a great many people. I think it was 5,000.
Yeah, I was going to say the carriers had a big crew, yeah. But I was thinking around 5,000. Yeah, when I got out of nuclear power school, they gave us an option of either going on carriers or submarines back then, and I was scared of going on a carrier. It sounded too big to me, so I volunteered for submarines. I don't know if that was smart of me or not.
Wow.
We're going to go back outside here for a little bit. Just go to the right over here. Something that's really, it's kind of unique to LSTs is this called the stern anchor. There's the winch that holds it in. When they went to land this thing on the beach, they would drop this anchor about 300 yards out in the ocean, take a bite in the sand down the bottom, and then they would pay out the cable to the beach. Straight, waves would try to carry it around sideways. Then when they were ready to get back off the beach, then they would actually reverse the engines, then use this stern anchor, the stern anchor to actually pull them off the beach.
It'd still be, have to be floating too, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now sometimes they wouldn't even this would work. They might have to throw a tow line out to another ship out in the water and actually pull them off the beach sometimes. You still feel like doing a little more climbing?
That's not fun.
We have to cover those are those emergency hatches. I think they leak, so they cover them up.
That's better cleaning up a bit.
Yeah, we keep one of these guns uncovered, but these are 4mm first cannons. They typically take a crew of about 7 to fire one. There's 2 of these that actually outside over here, and these guys were responsible for keeping there's a rack on the other side over there. They had to keep that full of shells while so he could keep loading it. And then typically they might have 2 other guys running ammunition up from downstairs up here. So it took about 7 guys to fire one of these cannons.
Wow.
And then they also had a
Not talking.
yeah, and then they had a talker. A talker as well. And, they actually had a gun director. His tub there, he was up in there, and he was the guy that would look for the enemy planes and stuff coming in, and he would let the guys know what direction to be looking and where to fire and stuff.
Wow.
So you can't. So we got
I can't hardly believe they did all that by hand. I mean,
everything was by hand back. That's why they had such a big crew. Everybody says, you know, well, do you guys still have that many? You know, heck, when we take this thing out, we might only have 30 or 40 guys. But back then, you had to have, heck, half the crew was there to fire the weapons and stuff when they needed them.
Yeah.
So that was back to they had a twin cannon back on the stern. Single Bofors cannons on the sides, and my understanding is during the war, the 20 millimeters actually lined the whole main deck on both sides. They might have like a dozen 20 millimeter guns.
I know in the old movies you would see them like that.
Oh, yeah, if they didn't get the planes would get them. So they had to, they did everything they could. Of course, they were cannons, which meant they fired exploding shells. So they were designed basically, even if they missed the plane, hopefully the exploding shell would deliver enough shrapnel that it would bring the plane down. Anyway, that's.
Well, I'll tell you, it's really a fascinating.
Process to that.
We'll go around this way.
Go ahead. We're going to have 1 o'clock for you. All right, thank you.
Racks of shells. They came in racks of 4 like that, and unfortunately, like I said, we got that all covered up. But there was actually a rack up there that would hold about 4 of these in there. So these guys out here were responsible for keeping that rack full, and then the actual loader was loading them into the guns themselves. And here's one with the actual projectile on it. Of course, it don't have any powder in it. we're not that. But that gives you an idea of kind of what they look like then.
You know.
All right, we'll head on back this way. Woo. Yeah, we're almost there. Those LCDPs were hung up here. We have 2 of them. They could actually as many as 6 of them on these LSTs. I'm not sure how many this one had at one time, but it's got just 2 of them inside now. And then, of course, we have head life rafts. They basically line the whole deck on both sides. It's kind of fun. And this is the wheelhouse here. This is where they originally steered the ship from, and now they don't steer it from here. They've actually got like a joystick up in the con, which is the main room up there where this captain steers the ship from up there now. Of course, that was your engine order telegraph. When he would call down through this voice tube, and hey, I've got an old Korean War sailor here, and he was an electronics guy, so I was going to have him take a look at your radio room here.
I could use some help right now fixing one. Come on.
Yeah, sure.
This is Bob. This is our radio man.
Oh,
But you can go on in there, and since you're kind of special, we'll let you come in and look at his radio room. Normally, you don't let too many people in here.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, I know, it's a mess.
It's crowded too, isn't it?
Yeah.
My goodness.
Originally, the radio room only came to here. You had 2 receivers. Well, it was,
Yeah.
where's the picture at? Yeah, this was the extent of the radio room. This guy's left shoulder is up against this bulkhead. The typewriters,
Uh-huh.
we found several of them sitting on a warehouse skid, still in Cosmoline, never even used. We traded one of these big radios for 2 of them. So those are the original.
Yeah.
They have only capital letters because there's no Morse code for small letters.
Hey, I didn't know that. See, I learned something new just now.
Yeah.
Wow.
As the things to do increased, the radios increased to go along with it. And teletype was introduced along about the Korean War time. This bad boy quit working. I'm trying to just getting started working on that. These things are all solid steel, as you know.
Yeah.
And the radio men were not technicians exactly. They're limited to, if it don't work, try replacing some tubes. If that don't work, swap it out when you get back into port. So right now everything in here except that works.
Yeah, this is all World War II equipment. A lot of
Yeah,
it is.
you see all these dials, man.
Yeah, it all works. This is the one I'm real proud of. It's a low band receiver, RBA. It has serial number 2. Number 1 is kept by the factory. Number 2 hits the fleet, and we got it. There are ham radio operators that would die to get that.
Oh, I bet so.
Yeah, he said he did electronics. He was an electronics guy in the Navy.
Yeah.
Back in, I said, well, I've got a room I want to show you.
These are came out of submarine, 1939 vintage. They're regenerative.
Oh.
These are super het. These had a little nasty habit that they would leak a little RF back out the antenna from the oscillator, which was very, very weak and really not considered a problem until the Japanese figured out how to zero in on it and let's shoot a torpedo in that direction and see what happens.
Wow.
So they literally drafted some engineers, put them in little rooms that don't come out until you come up with
Until you get the RF out of there.
Yeah, these are regen. World War II price was about $2,000 each. I guess right now they'd be valued at about $6,000 each, at least.
Yeah.
The transmitter on the left, you may be familiar with. That's the OTDS.
Wow.
And then the one on the right came along about the Korean War time. That one you have to tune each stage, which scares me. This one is now, all the oscillators are ganged together. So now you just,
Yeah, you got
I like that. I don't like that. Perry can operate that like he's in his sleep. But then he's a senior chief, that's all he's
So it's like if you tune into the wrong frequency, you're going to get
Well, you never know. You can set
Talking to the wrong person.
You can set the local oscillator, and then if you go up and you hit a
Yeah, you can hear it squealing.
you hit an overtone that you don't mean to, and next thing you know, you're transmitting who knows where. And that's just a little practice key for the visitors. 90% of all the traffic was receiving, very little transmitting. And the guy had to
I
be,
bet it was, yeah.
yeah, they just
What's your step
listen
coming
and
out
type, listen and type.
Wow.
So anytime,
Thank you for
anytime you want to come back and get your fingers wet, and
I know we are
Just come
planning on. We're trying to raise the money to come back and do a nighttime tour for 4 hour. Or yeah, the 4 hour tour to rent it out for the night, and we'll probably come and do that. I talked to one of the guys on the site there about coming back to do to rent it out for 4 hours. I think it was like $600.
huh,
I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that
I
yet.
didn't, that's something in the front office.
Yeah, so I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, that was required like a 2 week.
If you're going to be here at night, you got to deal with Jonathan.
Yeah, we had to schedule.
That's our resident ghost.
Yeah, we couldn't get it scheduled in time for Halloween, so
Well, you got a workshop. Yeah, that was combat, and since we're not in combat, I took it over and made a workshop out of it.
Of course, those are
Are you familiar
that's our
with
magnetic compass back there, and this is our gyro compass repeater up here. And then the way they control the engine speed is over there now. In the old days, they used this to just send the speed down to the engine room, tell the people in the engine room what speed to run the engines, but now they actually control the engine speed from up here. And then, like I said, they don't steer from here anymore, they actually steer from up in the con. You guys done?
Stopping by.
I thought maybe you were going to fix a radio for me.
I'm taking my
He
days off.
said he would, but this guy's in a hurry, so.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot.
special accidents.
Now there's a wrench and a half. Huh?
Yeah, that was actually to manually control those raise and lower the LSTs. They said it would take about an hour of hard cranking to get them up and down.
Oh, I imagine.
Yeah, they try to use the motor whenever possible. This is the wheelhouse. The next room up, that is the captain's sea cabin. So if he had to stay out here for a long time, he could take breaks and stuff in that little room. And then right at the very top is what we call the con, which is where they actually steer from now. The original design stopped right here, but that was all added later on. So for one thing, so the captain could actually see out over the bow a little bit better. This is a historic picture here. This is actually us. This is the LST 325 right here. And it's looking out over the main deck here, so you can see how loaded. Always get tickled with this guy standing up here watching what's going on. They were getting ready to land in Sicily, at Gela, Sicily, during the invasion of Sicily. And this was a cruiser, Boise, that came in front of them that was actually softening up the beach for them before they could land. So that's I always like to point that out. It's a pretty historic picture there.
Yeah, I'm trying to kill them all.
We won't go up any higher though, because I'm getting tired too. No, that's all.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, I think the original radio room was in the producer storage. I think we were standing at the so Bob knows a lot more about it. I thought at one time we also used it for navigation. Almost done.
I don't think my daughter would have made it with all this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I didn't want to embarrass you or anything, but I was going to tell you, if you didn't want to do a lot of climbing, but heck, you're doing better than me, so. We've got one little bit more to go into here. We're going into officers' country here.
Uh-oh.
Which, of course, enlisted men aren't allowed in officers' country.
Nope.
All right, to the left here, that's the wardroom. Of course, originally it wasn't, it didn't have all that wood paneling, it was just all metal originally. But and then down through here was the staterooms back in that area there, and for the officers.
But they still look just like them in the new ship still.
Yeah, this is the pantry. Of course, the only enlisted men that were allowed in here were the stewards who served the officers. So then they would serve the officers down there. Some more staterooms. This is actually the XO's cabin here, and then there's just some more staterooms back in there for the officers. There were about 3 to a room. And then this is the last but not least. This was the captain's cabin.
Oh,
Yeah, that's our visiting admiral. He's been there for a while.
that's pretty good.
Of course, the captain was the only one that had his own head and showers, and that's back in that corner over there. So, all right, well, I think I'm about done, buddy.
All right, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we'll go on out this door here.
All right.
Oh, wrong side. Let's try.
Oh,
let's
it's
try
locked.
Let's try this side. That's what I said. I don't want you guys to. Now he's probably pretty good at these, but every time I get messing with him, I always pinch my fingers and stuff in there. Just don't feel too good. All right, get back up this way. So once again, watch your step.
Yeah.
One last thing I forgot to show you downstairs, but this is actually the carpet patch here.
Yeah, you showed us the top of it.
Yeah, well,
I mean, the bottom of it.
yeah, that was actually the elevator down there.
Oh.
There's an elevator at that end and a cargo hatch up here, so if they were in a port or they could put a crane or something to load that lower deck up, they could lower it down through this here with cranes and stuff.
You did good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Man,
Of course, I'm a volunteer. I'd tell you to go tell the lady up there that I did good, so I get paid more. I don't get paid anyway. You've been here almost a year now. You ought to be due for a pay raise. I said, we get paid? He goes, no, I was just kidding.
surprise, surprise.
Last summer, well, it was kind of a late summer, early fall. I spent a lot of time on my knees here painting this deck. Looks like we're going to be doing some painting again this year.
Yeah.
I was walking around it here a while ago, noticing a lot of it's starting to chip up again. So that's probably going to be 90% of my job here.
As long as it has pinholes in it.
Yeah, it's got a lot of divots and nips and stuff in it. This thing's almost 80 years old. So it's built next thing.
Yeah, well, I was going to Roosevelt and I was a smoke fan, and I was smoking in a place where you weren't allowed to smoke.
Okay.
And this chief comes walking through there and jabs me, and he told me I had to chip a whole, I mean, it must have been 100 yards long. And
Had those
anyway,
old needle guns.
but he didn't remember who I was.
Oh, okay.
We went into a room, or passage, I guess you call it, and anyway, he got mixed up with who I was, and he couldn't, and I wouldn't admit that
You weren't going to admit to him.
and anyway, I got out of it, but it was only lucky.
Yeah.
I can always remember that because I came through there about 3 months later, and this whole wall had been chipped off. You have to, you know how it is in this area. You have to chip all the metal down, nothing, bare metal. Then they paint it. They won't paint scrape any paint off. And well, that's the way they did it in the old days.
Yeah, they still do. We use those needle guns.
Yeah.
Air needle guns. Yeah, that's what we use here. By this time, we basically just spot painted it.
Yeah.
But I think this next
Well, you volunteered.
Yeah, well,
If you'd have been caught doing something.
yeah, then it was a bad thing. I don't know though. Like I said, I was on that submarine. I remember doing a lot of painting down in bilges and stuff in the engine. So even though we still...
Well, I worked on the aircraft. That was good. Not just stupid.
Well, that was...
I don't even know how we get off here.
Oh, we're gonna go up that way. Okay, well, if you don't have any questions, you got all your pictures and stuff you wanted?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think there was only, I think there when we got to the MASH Jeep, I think my camera shut off.
Oh.
And I missed all that.
Oh, okay. Well, let's come back again sometime.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna come back and get that.
Yeah, like I said,
If it's not on here, but for somewhere down there it cut off. And it was like my batteries were fully charged in the camera, and when we first started right here, before we even went in the hole, my camera died.
Oh, God.
And it was fully charged.
Oh,
So
okay.
Something drained the batteries out of my camera.
Well, you got some pictures on it.
And then but that happens, you know. I mean, we'll get sent to some places that we'll investigate, and every one of our batteries will just go drained. And
the ghost kick.
yeah, that's you know, that's one sign of the paranormal being around, is they draw off that energy from the batteries and things like that. And a lot of times they'll mess with the focus, because the like digital cameras, you know, they try to focus on different things that are close or far away, and when something is there but really not there, the camera sees it and tries to focus in on it, and it'll just be all messed up. But
Well, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, they're serious. I don't...
well, no,
Well, like I said, they said, yeah, this thing is haunted. I said, well, I guess when you got an 80-year-old ship, it might be haunted for all I know.
yeah, that's my YouTube channel there,
Oh, okay.
and then I'm a minister. So
You're a minister and
yeah,
and a ghost chaser.
yeah. Because I mean, a lot of people, you know,
There, you can lean on
a lot of people, when they, especially people who grew up religious, sometimes they don't believe in ghosts. But when you give them evidence and things like that, and compare it with the Bible, and the way the Bible explains a lot of stuff in religion, you know, there is an afterlife, and there is a place between heaven and hell, and that's what I think that cameras and other people that are real sensitive and things like that pick up on. So as a minister, I try to go out and explain that, because I mean, it's like people think, you know, they believe in demons, you know, because of the Bible and Jesus tells us about demons, but then they don't realize that when you on Halloween night and you play with a Ouija board, that's what that's doing, is releasing a demon.
I have heard that, and that's why I never let my kids fool with those.
Yeah, and I get a lot of phone calls about that, you know, and especially around Halloween, right after Halloween night, everybody will tell me, hey, I think I have a demon, or I think I have a ghost, because we played with a Ouija board last night, you know. Need you to come bless my house. But that's just, look at there, there's a Jeep.
Yeah, that's this guy here. He owns that Jeep. He's proud of it.
That's one of my favorite Jeeps, is those old school Jeeps like that.
I don't think that's World War II, but it's like right after. Late 40s. Get over here and push the button so we put the brakes in it.
Don't get caught in it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. If you guys do want to see us go back and do a paranormal investigation there on the ship, please let us know, and we will go back and do that. Because there was a lot of good things that we picked up. even though it wasn't a paranormal investigation. But we do want to go back. Um, I know I'm thinking about going back and maybe doing some volunteering time on the ship, on the battleship, especially when they get it out into the waters. They sail out and they go on the rivers, and go to different places and do tours there in different cities. And I might end up doing something like that. I don't know. If you guys want to see me do something like that, comment down below. If you want to see us go back for a nighttime investigation there on the battleship, please let us know, because there was a lot of history there on that ship that I did not know about. Like, that ship there was in Normandy. It was there at D-Day, and it went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, delivering cargo, delivering tanks, delivering people, and everything that it needed to do to win that war. And that ship made it through all that devastation, which I did not know. Um, so if you want to see us go back and do a nighttime investigation, just comment down below. I want to tell you thank you for all the support you've been giving me. Love you guys. Peace out. Much love.